A single gut bacterium. Not a drug, not a therapy. Outperformed a prescription antidepressant in clinical testing. It lowered cortisol, changed brainwave patterns, and improved sleep. And it came from the gut of one healthy elderly person in Cork, Ireland. This is the story of Bifidobacterium longum 1714. And by the end of this, you will understand why some researchers consider it the most important probiotic ever studied. The strain's full name is Bifidobacterium longum 1714. Over the past 15 years, it has quietly become one of the most studied psychobiotics on the planet. If you have never heard that word before, do not worry. You are about to understand exactly what it means, why it matters, and how it could be relevant to your health or the health of someone you care about. Start with the basics. Your gut contains trillions of bacteria, and we've known that for a long time. What we didn't fully appreciate until recently is that these bacteria don't just digest food. They talk to your brain. They do this through something called the gut-brain axis, a two-way communication highway running through your vagus nerve, your immune system, and your hormonal pathways, including what scientists call the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which governs your body's entire stress response. When that communication breaks down, bad things happen. Chronic stress, poor sleep, inflammation, depression. Back in 2013, two researchers at University College Cork, Professor Ted Dinan and Professor John Cryan, coined a brand new term for a brand new idea. They called it a psychobiotic, defined as a live organism that, when ingested in adequate amounts, produces a health benefit in patients suffering from psychiatric illness. These are not your ordinary probiotics. Psychobiotics specifically produce and deliver neuroactive substances like GABA and serotonin that act directly on the gut-brain axis. Professor Cryan put it plainly. He said the field represents a paradigm shift in how we understand the brain. In traditional medicine, systems were compartmentalized, so neuroscience and psychiatry focused on everything from the neck up. The psychobiotic revolution says that is not enough. You have to look at the gut. Bifidobacterium longum 1714 became the defining example of that revolution. The strain was originally isolated from the intestinal mucus of a healthy elderly individual, and that detail actually matters. Bifidobacterium longum is one of the very first species shared between mother and baby at birth. It stays with us throughout life, and its presence in the gut appears to be a consistent feature in centenarians. People who live past 100 tend to carry meaningful levels of this bacterial family. The preclinical research began in 2010, and the early results were striking. Researchers gave B. longum 1714 to a strain of mice known for being innately anxious. These BALBC mice received either the probiotic, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor antidepressant called escitalopram, or a placebo. Both the probiotic and the drug reduced compulsive and anxiety-like behavior. But then something unexpected happened. In subsequent tests measuring stress and depression-related behavior, the bacterial strain outperformed the antidepressant. A bacterium from someone's gut reduced stress and depressive behavior more effectively than a pharmaceutical designed to do exactly that. And here's what makes that result even more significant. Around the same time, another probiotic strain called Lactobacillus rhamnosus, JB1, was producing similarly exciting results in mice, reducing anxiety and altering GABA receptor expression in the brain. The scientific community was electrified. But when JB1 entered human trials, it failed to replicate those effects. The translation from animal to human simply didn't hold. B. longum 1714 went through that same gauntlet, and it passed. The obvious next question was whether any of this translated to humans. In November 2016, researchers published the first human trial in the journal Translational Psychiatry. 22 healthy volunteers went through a brutal stress test called the Socially Evaluated Cold Presser Test, where participants submerged their hand in ice water while being watched and judged. After taking B-longum 1714 daily for 4 weeks, participants showed reduced cortisol output and lower subjective anxiety compared to placebo. That was a clear signal that the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis stress response was being modulated. Daily reported stress levels dropped, and researchers observed improvements in hippocampus-dependent visuospatial memory, the ability to recall spatial layouts and navigate environments, a cognitive function that often declines with age. A larger trial followed. 40 healthy volunteers were randomized in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study using magnetoencephalography brain imaging and a psychological tool called the cyberball game, a virtual ball-tossing scenario where participants were deliberately excluded to trigger social stress. The results, published in the American Journal of Gastroenterology in 2019, showed that B-longum 1714 actually changed brainwave patterns. It increased theta and alpha band power, the EEG frequency ranges associated with calm alertness and emotional processing in the frontal and cingulate cortex, regions tied to emotional regulation and coping. The researchers concluded that the strain modulated neural responses during social stress by activating brain coping centers to counter-regulate negative emotions. Even Dr. Paul Anke, a researcher who specializes in the placebo effect and who described himself as skeptical of probiotic claims, acknowledged the significance. He said the results were novel and innovative and provided a scientific basis for assessing the true impact of specific bacterial strains on the brain. Then came the sleep study. Published in Scientific Reports in February 2024, 89 adults with poor sleep quality took either Bifidobacterium longum 1714 or a placebo daily for 8 weeks. The probiotic group showed improved sleep quality and reduced daytime dysfunction after just 4 weeks, with further improvements in energy, vitality, and social functioning by week 8. Now, not every study has been a home run, and that reveals important limits. A 7-day supplementation trial in healthy young adults found no significant effects on stress or anxiety, suggesting that short-term use simply isn't enough. Some researchers have struggled to replicate the cortisol findings. The original 2016 study was small, used only male participants to control for hormonal variables, and excluded prior probiotic users. One study that launched in January 2020 was potentially confounded by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The translation from mice to humans remains genuinely challenging, as the JB1 experience demonstrated. In 2025, a landmark mechanistic study led by Dr. David Gruger at Novonesis was published, representing 15 years of accumulated research. For the first time, scientists identified exactly how Bifidobacterium longum 1714 works. The strain produces a specific exopolysaccharide, a branched sugar molecule on its surface, that selectively triggers the release of the anti-inflammatory cytokine interleukin-10. It also produces tryptophan and indole-3 lactic acid, which directly reduce inflammatory signaling by blocking activation of nuclear factor kappa B, an effect mediated in part through the aryl hydrocarbon receptor, a key molecular switch in the tryptophan metabolism pathway. Analysis from the 2024 human sleep trial confirmed that participants taking the strain had increased plasma levels of tryptophan and kynureninic acid, a neuromodulator in the brain. Researchers also noted signals consistent with increased brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the protein that supports neuroplasticity and is often described as fertilizer for the brain. We now know the molecules. We know the pathways. This isn't a mystery anymore. Professor Ted Dinan captured the broader insight well. He said his team discovered that the gut microbiota influences our emotions, and that people who are clinically depressed carry less bacterial diversity in their gut than people who are not depressed. The standard clinical dose is 1 billion colony-forming units per day. In Ireland, the strain is commercially available as Zenflor, and globally through Novonesis as ProbioBrain. It won the 2025 Mind and Mood Ingredient of the Year at the Nutra Ingredients Europe Awards, which signals that the broader scientific and nutritional community is paying serious attention. So what does this mean for you? If you are dealing with stress, disrupted sleep, or mental fatigue. Or if you are caring for someone who is, Bifidobacterium longum 1714 represents something genuinely new. It is not a drug, and it is not a supplement full of synthetic compounds. It is a living organism that evolved alongside us, passed from mother to child, found thriving in the guts of the healthiest elderly people on Earth, and is now backed by 15 years of rigorous science. The gut-brain axis is not a fringe idea anymore. It is the frontier of modern medicine, and one tiny bacterium from Cork, Ireland, is leading the way. Bifidobacterium longum 1714 works over days and weeks. But what if there is a gut bacterium that begins changing your brain in a matter of minutes? That is exactly what we are covering next.